On the last case, the cost of saving the world was that my hair got dyed. The purple was fading after a few days, and yet Jimmy still had the nerve to make fun of it. I dropped by the office to bring milkshakes for her and Tippy as a reward for doing such a good job holding down the fort while I was busy. Tippy was very happy to get a treat. He finished it in record speed before he left, on the hunt for some more lost pets. He was a kind and honest creature that put all of his energy into returning animals to their families. Recently, we'd gotten him set up to fix any feral stray cats he was able to catch and release in order to combat the overpopulation in our city. Jimmy drank hers slower, so I decided her casual remarks about my hair and lack of a girlfriend were enough to be punished by having the remainder of her milkshake taken away. When I placed it in the bottom drawer of the desk, I thought her cries were to get it back. As it closed and the lock clicked, I found out she was trying to warn me that the key to that drawer was lost. We were both on the floor trying to force it open when Nick walked in. He stared at us from the door, trying to decipher what we were trying to do. I locked half a milkshake inside here, I explained. I knew it was already tipped over and hoped it didn't leak too much inside of the drawer. Why? I really couldn't go into an explanation about it without it coming off as more embarrassing as it already was. He joined us, getting down to fiddle with the lock. Jimmy provided a bobby pin so Nick could try to open the drawer. His hair had yet to grow back from when we styled it. At least most of the purple had faded. He was able to get the drawer open so I could evaluate the damage. It was going to take a while to wash out all the milky strawberry chunks from the wood grain. "Where did you learn how to pick locks?" Jimmy asked, a bit amazed. He had even folded back her bobby pin to its original shape. "I was bored on bed rest and needed to do something," he said as he stood back up. Nick was on bed rest a lot, and here I thought he'd been, well, resting. Instead, he was learning new skills. Abarash would be pissed to find out he had done such a thing. Carrying over the drawer to the small sink, I talked to Nick about why I showed up. "There is a drug problem happening and we've been asked to take a look at it," he started. "Why would that have to do with the corporation?" I asked, knowing this drawer was a lost cause but not ready to accept it yet. Normally, substances that affect humans don't do anything for supernatural creatures. If they do, it happens for a very short time. What has started to appear is a drug that not only humans can use, but that works for creatures as well. It's highly addictive, and made from a source almost too gruesome to consider. The magic imbued inside it stays inside a human's system. If they take it too much, they'll turn into something else. I needed to buy a new desk. Putting that aside, I focused on Nick. This problem really sounded as if it needed to be stopped as soon as possible. When I first moved in with my sister, we had stayed with her then boyfriend. In the few months I was there, he'd gotten into some pretty heavy stuff. We left really soon after. I've never touched anything myself and barely ever drank. That one brief encounter was enough for me to see what people could turn into. And that was without magic being involved. "So, we need to take down a drug operation?" I asked. "Sounds kinda scary." Jimmy chimed in. I'd forgotten she was there for a second. I didn't tell her a lot of what I did when it came to corporation cases. She'd wanted to work for them in an office setting, but I'd poached her from them. Investigating some drug gang was something minor compared to everything else we'd done so far. Raising my hand, I felt for the part of the ear that was missing. I tended to forget I sort of looked like a mysterious agent now. "Don't worry about it. I'm sure it won't be a big deal. I'll come back soon and buy you another milkshake." I started to head out of the office ready to get down to work with Nick on my heels. We both ignored his question about why the milkshake was locked away in the first place. To my surprise, the case brought us to the same city my sister was living in. I haven't seen her in person for a few years. Recently, I'd sent her enough money to buy a used car so she wouldn't need to worry about her old one breaking down again. I really didn't think I would be able to see her so soon. The case needed to come first, but there was a chance I could introduce my only family to the person who had pretty much become a brother in the last few months. We got a room in a hotel to have a home base where we could sit down and go over the case. It was weird being so close to where my sister lived without seeing her first. Nick put out some photos and I forced myself to pay attention. There were 3 headshots in a row and one on top. Nick pointed to one of a man with sunken eyes and greasy hair. As far as we can tell, there are 3 main sellers and 1 leader of the group. It seems like this man is the weakest link and would be most likely to crack. The entire operation is being run by half-breeds. However, not much is known about their backgrounds. I picked up the photo to see it labeled with crocodile waters. Knowing how bad creatures were at naming their kids, I assumed he also got stuck with a horrible name. Or this was a gang name he picked, but who in their right mind would use something like that? So, where does he hang out? He must have certain spots where he likes to deal, I said while putting down the photo. He tends to hang around a nightclub. Finding him should be easy enough. We just need to be careful that he doesn't run if he becomes aware of us, Nick said and wrote down the name of the nightclub we would need to check out later that night. Alright, we grab him and beat the information we need out of him. Sounds easy enough, I commented with a shrug. Using honey instead of vinegar in this situation may be more suitable. He's already been threatened by rival gangs without any effect. He is the only one we were able to dig up any information on. His sister is ill and he needed a great deal of money for her treatments. He's risking his life by dealing in order to save her. If we pay for her treatments, he should flip to our side. Nick explained. Nick did have a fortune hidden away. He could easily pay for something like that. I didn't know how I felt about it all. This guy was ruining other people's lives for some quick cash. It may be for a good reason, but I had been in a bad situation money-wise in the past and I hadn't turned to that sort of thing. I had hoped we could rough him up a little for the harm he caused. Okay, so how are we going to grab him from the nightclub? It'll be crowded and loud. We'll need to scout it out first and figure out the floor plan. I wonder if we could go inside before they open to get a good look around. Looking at the name, it was a place I'd never heard of. It must have opened up after I moved away. I worked in a lot of bars and clubs, bussing and cleaning up at the end of the night. Legally, since I was still a student, I couldn't be working so late, but all those places didn't care. My finger was tapping on the table when an idea came to mind. We didn't need to hunt him down, he could come to us. You're right, we can use honey for this job. Nick looked over at me, puzzled by my comment. We had all day to get ready for this plan. I could only hope that my partner really didn't mind acting as bait a second time. I doubted there would be a female agent available. After a quick call, that turned out to be true. Without any solid information, the corporation couldn't spare another agent for this job. That meant we needed to go shopping. Are you sure you're all right with this? I asked for at least the 10th time that day. It was getting late in the day and there were only a few more hours until the nightclub opened. Buying the clothing we needed was easy enough. Trying to figure out what kind of makeup to use took a while though. I was out of touch with the club scene and didn't know what girls look like all dressed up these days. In the end, we decided we didn't need to follow any trends, just make our bait pretty. And my partner really did fit that requirement after we were done with him. It is not a problem. He is more likely to approach a single woman who is unguarded. I do not even need to speak. He'll follow me out of the club if I take his hand. It will be simple and will not draw attention to us. Nick explained the plan. I still was uneasy about it. I knew he would be fine. I just didn't want someone to get all touchy with him. The outfit we picked out was pretty much the same as the first time Nick needed to dress up. A white button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up, black pants with black heels. I found some simple gold clip-on earrings and some bracelets for him to wear. Some foundation and lip gloss pulled the entire thing together. We debated on if we needed to stuff his shirt. I figured that would make it look too unnatural. So, he was flat, but looked attractive enough that it didn't matter. As long as he didn't speak, no one would ever be able to tell his real gender. The dim light in the club would help. If he gets handsy, just punch him out. I said, arms crossed. That would defeat the purpose of this. When did Nick get so much sass? There was still some time, so I offered to paint his nails black. Some nail polish was on sale and it was an impulse buy. I haven't painted anyone's nails since I was younger with my sister. When I got to his pinky nail, I was shocked to see it was missing. What happened here? I asked him. I used it to heal you on the velvet back case. He replied, holding his hand still so the polish could dry. I can't believe I hadn't noticed that until now. He said he could use parts of his body to heal or change others. I'd assumed it would have grown back. When he offered a piece of his liver to change my body, he knew he wouldn't be able to get it back. This whole time he'd been missing a nail because he saved his partner. I put away the nail polish to think about what I'm going to say. For a while I wanted to explain myself on why I refused the offer back then. I was stubborn on getting the last surgery on my own but didn't fully understand why until recently. Back when I was living with my sister, it was rough on both of us. We were trying to support ourselves and 2 small kids. During all of that, I saved up for the first surgery. I feel a bit guilty for spending the money on that though. We could have used it for so many other things and I could have waited. But when I see what I look like now, I can see all the hard work I put into it. It took me a really long time to realize I was proud of myself for all the effort. Right now, I'm waiting for after I have enough saved up to take care of my sister and her kids. After that, I can figure out when I can take time off for the last surgery. Nick listened as I spoke, with a hint of a smile on his face. He wasn't upset because I refused his offer and instead understood the reasoning behind it. There are so few things in life I was proud of. Being proud of myself was such an odd feeling I didn't know how to deal with it. It was so much easier to be proud of him for sticking up for himself than reflecting on my own life. When everything was all said and done, I would let him change the rest of my body to what it should be. After all, I really couldn't change my genes, just surface appearance. For right now, I wanted to go at my own pace. After the case, I want to introduce you to my sister. I said finally, I would like that. With all of that out of the way, we needed to go back to the case. The nightclub was a loud, obnoxious place, and I hated it the moment we walked inside. It was too dark, too hot, and the music was just beats rattling the entire building. I peeled away, letting Nick sit by the bar so we could look for our target. Within seconds, he was bothered by other guys trying to buy the lone pretty thing a drink. He didn't speak, and even if he did, they wouldn't have heard him. From what I could tell, he didn't even look at the guys trying to get his attention. It made them curse and sulk off, trying to think of a different plan. My head was going to split open if we needed to be here for much longer. Suddenly, Nick stood up. He wove through the crowd to someone wearing a white coat. I moved in closer just in time to spot Crocodile's face turn towards who just stopped in front of him. He spoke, but Nick just took his wrist to start guiding the drug dealer to the back door. I was closer, so I slipped into the back alleyway waiting for them. It was dirty, covered in grime, and smelled of stale beer. At least it was a bit quieter and would be easy to talk out here. When Nick dragged the other man out, he wasted no time trying his move. In one swift motion, he placed a hand against the closed club door, pinning Nick to it even though he was the shorter of the two. I don't give out my product for free, but for you I'll give a discount if you want to do a little favor for me, Crocodile said in the best seductive tone he could muster. It honestly sounded pretty sad. You know you're hitting on a male agent, right? I said, arms crossed, watching the scene. Our target jumped, darting to one side. Nick easily got in the way. I stood next to him, cornering the man in the alleyway. It was a dead end at his back and he couldn't get past us. Sweat started to appear on his forehead. He was a half-breed and didn't need to carry a weapon, but was nervous because he didn't know what he was facing. Agents, looking like that. Please, you're probably a part of some other gang trying to scare me off your turf. I mean, since when does the corporation let their agents dye their hair purple? He pointed out. I looked up at Nick. He really didn't look like an agent in the slightest. No wonder Anker freaked out over his hair. Thinking on my feet, I answered. We were undercover recently for a punk band. The dye hasn't faded. I lied. Oh, what instrument did you play? Crocodile said, his mouth in a half grin. He was slowly being won over. His body relaxed a little, noticing how we were joking around and not trying to break his nose. The honey approach really was the way to go. The tambourine, Nick said, and it caused us both to stare at him. His flat tone and honest answer threw us both off guard. I should get an award for not laughing. My face remained still and it hurt to hold back my snickers. Damn my partner for casually dropping something so funny. I would never be able to top it in my entire life even if I tried. Crocodile cracked first. He let himself snort, shaking his head. I bet you're looking for me to roll on my boss, huh? Well, tough luck. I have my reasons for doing this job. The dealer replied sternly, trying to recover some of his dignity. In exchange for information, we'll pay for your sister's treatments, Nick offered. That was not the right thing to say. Crocodile's face turned into a scowl, his mouth getting so long it might as well reach his ears. His other side was showing through his anger and voice shifted into something scratchy. She's my sister. It's my job to take care of her, not yours. If I can't do that, then there isn't any point to her having me as a brother, he hissed, eyes blazing. I reeled back and punched his shoulder. The shock of it nearly made him drop his appearance. Don't be stupid. We're here to buy information from you. That's taking care of her. She would be more upset that you've been hurting people trying to pay for her treatments. I snapped. The man got taller, his chest wider. His face shifted to a long lizard one with a row of teeth. His hair remained the same and he needed to push it out from his eyes. Sharp claws threatened my face as he pointed a finger in my direction. I'm not hurting anyone. They're making their choices coming by and buying my product. You corporation stiffs are always wasting your time on nonsense when there are real issues going on. He shouted back. This drug changes people. How can you say that's not hurting them? I fought back, a bit of anger pooling into my stomach. He opened his mouth to reply when Nick took a step forward. From his pocket, he pulled out a folded piece of paper that looked like it was cut from a newspaper. Crocodile was still pissed, but also curious over what Nick offered. Snatching it from his hand, he read the clipping. His eyes ran along the text a few times. His entire body deflated. His face returned to a human one and his shoulders slumped. He quickly went from being an angry monster to looking like he was going to be sick. This can't be right. The coven isn't pure. It's a fake version we're not making it from. Unable to accept what he read, he pulled out his phone to confirm it. I didn't know what Nick showed him. For some reason, he'd held back some information about this case. When Crocodile found what he was looking for online, he almost threw up. Utterly disgusted, he dug into his pocket to throw some small packages of red powder to the ground. Staring at them as if they were a bomb, he looked at us wide-eyed. I looked up at Nick expecting some answers. The coven is a drug made from blood and bones of children harvested while they are still alive, mixed with other magic items. 3 remains have been found discarded, causing us to fully believe you are dealing the real product, Nick said as he bent over to retrieve the bags that were tossed aside. They were a tainted thing. I didn't want to touch them, but we couldn't just leave them behind. Horrified over what he'd been a part of, Crocodile nearly lost it. Hands raised to the side of his head, he shook, staring at the ground. I didn't know. His voice was soft and full of regret. We believe you. I assured him, hoping it helped even a little. He got himself collected enough to ask for a pen and paper to write down what he knew. To him, dealing drugs to adults who he thought should know better was acceptable. Harming children in the process was not. He could have justified his actions to a point. His hands still shook as he silently wrote down what he could. I don't understand why Piper would do this. He's lost a child, so should know the pain it causes. To kill others, I just don't get it, he said meekly, no longer acting tough. Nick accepted the notebook but didn't look over it yet. He could tell there was more information to get. What happened to his child? Nick pressed. Crocodile looked up, unaware of why it would help. Still, he went on. We all lived in a small community of half-breeds and some full breeds. When something was hunting us down, the corporation arrived too late. His son died and he's been trying to get back at you since. I assumed getting the money from this drug was a part of the plan, but it's stupid, you know. No matter how much we earned, we couldn't do a dent to the corporation. You all may be lacking agents, but fight against something like that would mean you would need an army. Nick finished. He figured out something we didn't just yet. Slowly it all sank into Crocodile's head and he grew paler. I clued in as well. The drug turned humans into something else, something supernatural that could be controlled by their addiction. Piper was trying to create his own fighting force for revenge. Horror over what was going on sank down to my bones. Crocodile whispered to himself, feeling stupid he was used in such a way. I'll turn myself in. I played a part in this. I just wanted to make money. I didn't want children to die, he admitted, knowing it didn't redeem his actions. Your punishment should be minor due to your regret and assistance. We'll vouch for the fact you were unaware of what was truly happening. I'll also ensure your sister is taken care of. Nick started. He pulled out some makeup remover to try and get his face cleaned up, then pulled out his phone to call for backup. We needed more agents to take down this entire operation. There were far too many places to take care of on our own. Aside from Crocodile, at least 2 other dealers needed to be caught along with their leader. With information and a good theory, some agents could be spared to help. They met us at the end of the alleyway within the hour. There were 2 sets of partners I'd never met before, as well as a numbered agent in order to bring Crocodile in. Nick was able to get the makeup off and they gave him a suit jacket. There was no time to get fully changed. What are we up against? I asked as the other agents started to leave to take care of their tasks. We were handed some guns along with some odd-looking magazines. The weapons looked normal, but they were magic stun guns. We were going against humans that had turned against their will. Killing them was not the goal. Getting them treatment was ideal, but I didn't know what kind of treatment was available. With continual use, the Coven drug turns humans into something so much like witches, they ended up being labeled as such. In fact, the first case we did was with a witch that turned years ago. Even 1 dose is enough to change a human forever. We need to take them into a protected treatment program for their own good, Nick said, the information leaving me shocked. We nearly died from going up against 1 witch, and now we might be facing a small horde of them. Somewhere in this city was an unknown number of witches lurking in the dark. I was given permission to call my sister. She needed to get out of town for a few days. My call didn't go through, causing me to nearly freak out. I left her a few messages. I wanted to drop the case and go to her. Finishing the job would be better. Our target was a warehouse where Crocodile picked up his products once a week. The other agents were to hunt down the rest of the dealers to break up the gang. A car was lent to us and Nick drove so I could keep trying to get through to my sister. I was scared to death over not only what we would face but for my family living inside the city.